You're listening to Inside the Locker Room with Wimp and Barry Sanderson on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa.
During the day, the high 83. Thursday, breezy with widespread rain, the high at 74. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9.
Inside the Locker Room with former Crimson Tide basketball coach Wimp Sanderson and his son, former SEC and ACC assistant basketball coach Barry Sanderson. It's time to take you inside the locker room on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
And good morning and welcome into a Tuesday edition of Inside the Locker Room. The phone number is always 205-342-9904 if you want to jump in on the show. Hey, Abe, or one of you guys call us, give that give them some of your thoughts on maybe a blue plate that might be good. Abe picked Tulane last week, so maybe sometimes we can use some assistance from the caller, so you can dial us up, give us maybe a game that you'd like this weekend. The app, the Tide 100.9 app, download that app to your smartphone. You can take us with you anywhere you go. If you want to email us, the email is wimpandberry@yahoo.com. Before we get started, though, we want to thank Yellowwood, Chase. That would be pressure-treated pine from Great Southern Wood. If you're going to build the 5-star backyard, the fence, the deck, the pergola, there's only one choice, and that would be Yellowwood. Go to yellowwood.com to find the dealer that is closest to you. We got Kevin Skarbinski joined at the bottom of the hour. We got some media clips from the coaching staff. We'll play for you in the second hour. We'll try to take your phone calls also throughout the show. Good morning, Chase. Good morning, Dad. How are you guys this morning?
We're hanging in there. I'm a little bit surprised at the media stuff. I'm real happy for our radio show. I don't know that the coaches, maybe on the defensive side, talk maybe a little bit too much. Maybe I'm dead wrong, but it helps our radio show certainly because it's good stuff, but especially for 7 o'clock shows. But we'll see what happens there. SEC's got six teams, running pretty good and pretty high. In the Florida situation, Lagway played so well, they're going to alternate quarterbacks in this A&M game. I think they're +4 in the game, I believe. I don't know. Hugh Freeze has come out both sides of his mouth a little bit on Thorne.
Hugh Freeze is...
Huh?
I mean, he said at the press conference yesterday there was one play he thought was a bad call by the coaching staff in the Cal game. He says he thought the rest of the play calls were there to be had, citing a lack of execution. I have never seen a guy never take responsibility for anything.
That's what I thought. I thought he kind of went both directions with it a little bit as to what they were going to do quarterback-wise. He doesn't want to lose confidence in Thorne. He doesn't want Thorne to lose confidence himself. So therefore, he's sticking with him, and in some cases, he's a little bit different. So, you guys that listen to the show, you decide what you think. Pitt fired their AD. I didn't find out exactly why. Found out about it last night, so it doesn't really matter. It's no big deal for us, particularly. It's certainly a big deal for him and his family. Cam Robertson had lost his father 2 days before the game. That was announced, which is very, very difficult when you lose somebody that close to your family. I think to play, it would be for me. It'd be hard for me to play, but anyway, that's what happened there. Kane didn't say that he thought the call on Justin was wrong because he can't afford to do that. But if you read between the lines, he thinks it was. It goes without saying, he said, thought, he goes around the bush and under the bush saying something about because Justin is knocked out for the first half of the Wisconsin game, and based on what happened when you get kicked out on the target, and then you're out. So he didn't. I don't think he thought it was right, but he couldn't afford to say that. So also wanted to mention that Auburn lost an offensive lineman, and you have to realize, brother, those offensive linemen are big when you're trying to protect their quarterback. So we're open to your phone calls. Kevin will be on and talk about whatever he wishes to talk about, and then tomorrow we'll have Roman Harper on. He'll be on at the 7:30 hour along with Bill Cameron. So we're going fairly good with people who keep up with it pretty good. I'm going to get Jack Crow on either Thursday or Friday. I don't know exactly when yet, but we've got football people coming on to talk football. Okay.
I've just never seen a coach, honestly, in any sport that does not normally get up in front of the media and say, we had some problems here and it's my responsibility. It lies at my feet. I'm the head of this program and I take responsibility. And I've never seen it. This guy's unbelievable. He
fires him behind the scenes.
He says there was one play he thought was a bad call by the coaching staff in the Cal game. And he says that he thought that the rest of the plays, he said we had guys running wide open and Peyton Thorne missed them.
We need to change quarterbacks then.
I mean, but is that any way, to roll your guys under the bus like that? And I'm shocked. I am. Of course, as guys coach at these in-state schools, when they're at Ole Miss and Liberty, and you don't really know them because you don't hear them on a daily basis speak. But this guy takes no responsibility for it, really. And I know he was very frustrated by this Cal loss. They're getting a lot of negative publicity about it, and then they got
Arkansas and Oklahoma.
That was not a game when you were saying, not you, but people were saying they were going to win 7. That was one you did not have them losing. So now they got to go beat somebody that you don't think they're supposed to beat.
I said they were going to win at least 7 and maybe 8. That's what I thought.
All right.
I thought they'd win 5 in a row there.
Now I do want to say this, and I want you to chime in on it. I don't know how good Wisconsin is. They beat South Dakota 27-13, and they beat Western Michigan 28-14. They have a senior quarterback, transferred from Miami, played a ton at Miami, so this guy's played a lot of football. He's thrown 406 yards, 1 TD. One thing I will say, I can remember all the years we went to the Final Four. The one year that Wisconsin was in the Final Four, I'm not sure I've ever seen a fan base travel like that fan base did and how rabid they were about the Badgers. I don't think people really understand what kind of atmosphere that Alabama is going to be running into on Saturday. Wisconsin has an incredible fan base.
They're getting ready.
Yes. And I don't know that Alabama people, they know it's crazy and Baton Rouge, and they know it's crazy when they go down to Auburn. I'm not sure they understand what they're running into on Saturday.
I think it's going to be a booger bear up there now. I don't think. They think they got a chance to win, and I think they'll be more than ready to play. And so the mental part of it will be out the roof. Now, whether they're good enough, no, our listeners we don't know, but the mental part of it will be they're keying in on one person. They're keying in on rushing the passer to make him miserable on Milroe. And sometimes you got this guy to worry about, that guy to worry about. But if you get Milroe stopped, if you get him running for his life, then you're in business against Alabama.
Yeah, it's the first game on the road. You got some running backs that haven't played. They're really good players. They haven't played a ton of football, so it's going to be loud. You have to be using hand signals. I don't know that people understand how loud this place is going to be.
I'll guarantee they don't.
They play that jump around song right when they come out of that tunnel. That place is electric when they come out there, Chase. Chase, you got a comment on that? It's going to be wild up there now. You better get ready for it.
You'll be jumping around, Chase.
One memory I have, LSU had played Wisconsin a couple years ago. Man, they had the stadium rocking.
Yes.
So I pray Bama can prepare for the noise they're about to do.
I know the coaches know, but I don't know if the fans understand. Like when they came to the Final Four, they took over down there. I could not believe the Wisconsin fan base.
I don't know that the players know, and I don't know that they're will have some noise at their practice or not, like most of the coaches have in the past. But I don't know. I know they keep up with them technically and know what to do defensively and offensively. I think, but I don't think the crowd noise is something the players really. It's hard to get them to realize that you may have the crowd noise at practice. Hopefully they do.
Yeah, well, they'll have it piped in, but I don't hear much talk about it, and so that makes me believe that I don't know. Maybe people don't understand. What it's going to be like at Camp Randall on Saturday at it'll be noon there. It'll be 11 o'clock here. 2-minute truck there at 1330 Martin Road East. That's where you go pick up your boxes, your packing supplies, whatever you need to make this a smooth move. It's local, out of town, out of state, no problem. Let the professionals handle it. They'll take great care of you and your stuff. Just give them a call today. They'll give you a free estimate right over the phone for whatever you need. 205-247-5050. That is 2 Men in a Truck, movers who care.
Here's what's trending on the Tuscaloosa thread.
Good Tuesday morning. West Alabama Works has a hiring event scheduled for Greensboro today at the Hale County College and Career Academy 2 until 5 this afternoon. DCH Healthcare System and the Alabama Department of Corrections are two of several employers that will be on site. Click TuscaloosaThread.com for more local news, sports, and weather coverage all throughout the day. It's absolutely free. Don Hartley, Town Square Media, Tuscaloosa.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. It is Tuesday, quiet for the most part. We're still hanging on in there with a free flow. And so let's look inside the construction zones because you definitely have those. And whoops, I did find a disabled vehicle. 2059 eastbound after Western Bypass. But this, folks, this is on the shoulder, so it's not even bothering you one bit in those main.
Not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
Road tripping, business travel, or bringing your car in for repairs. All great reasons to rent a Toyota at Tuscaloosa Toyota. You can rent the latest Toyota models for a day, a week, or a weekend. Every Toyota rental-car comes with 24 hours roadside assistance
for your engagement, anniversary, or birthday.
Come experience the difference of shopping local. Visit Hudson Pool Fine Jewelers, downtown Tuscaloosa, or at hudsonpool.com.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Sky partly sunny today, the high for this afternoon around 89. Becoming cloudy tonight, the low 67. Tomorrow cloudy, rain moving in during the day, the high 83. Thursday breezy with widespread rain, the high at 74. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9.
Never miss a moment of the action. Download the free Tide 100.9 app today.
Welcome back to Inside the Locker Room. Yellowwood pressure treated pine from Great Southern. If it doesn't have the yellow tag on it, you don't want. I'm sitting here looking at Camp Randall. Seats 76,057. They've remodeled it. It'll be full. It's a turf field, field turf. So since 2023, which makes it a fast surface. So that might help Alabama, there, but, there'll be a lot of red, in that place on, Saturday morning. I'll get to the Yellowwood hotline and let's get Philip into the show. Good morning, Philip.
Good morning, guys. Let me get my notes out. I've been concerned about Wisconsin for a little bit, just mainly the fact that, yeah, it's going to be loud, but everything's going to be early. They got to leave Tuscaloosa early. They got to get on up there. They got an early wake up call Saturday. You know, they're going to have to be getting ready to go to the stadium about 6:30 in the morning. They got to start, you know, rustling out of bed that early. It's going to be quite a challenge, and I think that their quarterback is good. I think he's a better passer than the South Florida quarterback, but I don't think he can hurt Alabama with his feet as much as Brown did last Saturday night.
Yeah, Tyler Van Dyke, 6'4", 225. He's a pretty big quarterback. There, like I said, he's thrown for 406 yards. No interceptions, only thrown one touchdown. And so they've scored, 27 and 28 points. They have given up right at 13.5 points a game there. But, Phillip, do you have a feel for how wild Wisconsin fans are, that it is going to be some atmosphere there? I don't know that the average people, we just don't hear about Wisconsin a lot, but they have a really, really big time fan base there.
Well, the average fan doesn't know who we're playing after Georgia. So, yeah, your average fan doesn't have probably that much of a clue as to what goes on at places like Madison, Wisconsin, and venues like that. But I do, and it's going to be a loud environment. It's going to be pretty warm. They were expecting some rain Saturday morning. That's been lifted. Now it's going to be about 80 degrees, you know, during the course of the game. So it's going to be hot. It's not going to be some 40-degree weather that people were, you know, talking about a few months ago. It's going to be a warm day. So Alabama's got to be ready. You know, I don't know what's going on with the line and Proctor and all that, but it's going to be a challenging game, and you got to be really quarterback ready. Got to control this guy and make him work for every pass that he throws.
Dad, an environment like that, how important is it? They're coming there to go crazy. If you let Wisconsin make a couple of big plays early, then the place just starts to build. Well, if you go in there and you jump on them early, then you can take them out of the game. How big is that early when you go into an atmosphere?
It's big early, but I think you need to talk about it a lot. I mean, I think position coaches need to understand that you may not be able to hear the calls on the offensive line. You need to talk about it. You know, you don't need to talk about it negatively. But you need to talk about it honestly. You don't need to be negative with it. But you know, we're facing probably the loudest crowd we're going to have outside of, you don't even have to say outside, one of the loudest crowds we've ever had at a non-conference game ever. Use that I'd use that all day with each position coach.
Phillip, does it worry you that, you know, whatever line they're wanting to run out there will probably be a line that has not played together this year. Proctor, it looks like, was supposed to be the starter. We'll see if he's well. I think they're not sure what to do with the other spots, so that they've had some injuries, and so they're going to have, when you go in that'll be the first time in that environment, you'll have a new line out there. You've got, you know, I think our running backs are really good. They've played a lot of football, but they're still sophomores. I don't know if they've been in that environment where they're expected to do so much. You got some young defensive backs back there that guys were running past over the weekend. So can your youth be a factor like that in a game of this magnitude with this kind of atmosphere?
I think it can be, but I think getting South Florida under the belt is going to be a big asset to Alabama, because those young guys got thrown to the fire Saturday night. I don't care what anybody says. South Florida is a pretty good team, and in some respects, they may be better in some areas than Wisconsin is. But the Wisconsin fans, they've been waiting for this game. They've had this game circled for a year. Yeah.
I hadn't gotten on the ticket deals. I didn't get on there to see what a ticket's going for this particular game. I'm sure you probably had to pay a pretty good price to get in there. Yeah, Alabama doesn't come to town just every year.
That's right. That's right. They're tremendously excited, Barry, and it's going to be a really close game, I believe. Alabama's a 13.5 point favorite, or 15.
Started out at like around 13 and went to as high as 16. I've seen it. So, maybe it's not a great Wisconsin team. They were 7-6 last year. They haven't blown anybody out this year. They've had some coaching changes here over the years here recently. So I don't know how much stability they've had. And, Alabama does have some speed, and I think they could maybe go to a number that Wisconsin can't. Maybe they can run away from them.
That's what I was going to say, Barry. I think some of the woes can be corrected with the type of pass routes that are called. I think the other night, Coach Sheridan was calling for some pretty deep plays, and Milroe just didn't have time. I mean, he didn't have time to do anything to wait on those routes to develop and all that. It was just over with almost as soon as he got the snap from center. He had somebody in his face, but.
Both of you can talk about everything you want to talk about, but I'm telling you right now, one of the keys is turnovers.
Turnovers.
They're going to hit you hard, and they're going to hit you and knock your neck and hide your clothes. So
I'm going to ask you guys this right here. What happens if Auburn wins less than 6 games this year? The buttons on his coaching shorts are going to be melted.
They got that recruiting class. If they can get them signed, that gives you hope for the future. They got to get that quarterback situation. Maybe this freshman kid will come in and end up being the guy. They got to get that settled, I think, in order to give them hope. But I just don't like the way Hugh Freeze never takes responsibility. It drives me insane, Philip.
Yeah, I know it does, Barry. And
you could tell that.
He pretty much. I won't say he threw Thorne under the bus yesterday with those comments, but he threw him under something.
Yeah, he needed a napkin when he got up Monday. He got some grease on his head. I can tell you that. Hey, you got a game for Dad. Dad needs some help, Philip. You see a game?
I don't need the help. I'm getting here right.
He needs some help, Philip.
I do not need help.
He would not. He made fun of Abe when Abe called last week. Poor Abe. And do you see one? Maybe
Abe hits one. He thinks he's a genius. Let me tell you something. Nick Saban said the same thing I did.
Nick Saban's the worst at picking. He's great on game day, but he's terrible at picking games.
Because he loses 2 games?
And then but he also, his timing is not good. He said, he bragged on Auburn. He talked about you better watch out for Auburn. I know people aren't going to like that Auburn.
I'll tell you one thing, you better, when you start studying the games this week, there are not a whole lot of them to pick.
Well, I've got some games in mind. I think that are hard. I've got some hard games in mind.
We want a hard one. He needs a win.
A winning game.
He needs a for sure win.
I'll find one. I'll find one. Don't worry about it.
I would say Troy and Iowa.
Yeah. Troy and Iowa.
Yeah, I thought about that.
What's the line on that one?
Big.
Yeah, I would think.
Yeah. But I tell you, going back to a hard game, man, I bet you LSU's intensity picked up Sunday morning.
That line's it's not 22. I was a 22-point favorite.
LSU. Well, but Iowa doesn't have any offense. Or haven't had. The biggest thing is the shocker. Regardless, a little bit of a shocker. I thought it'd be 3. Is South Carolina plus 4 and they're playing at home.
No, it's 7.
I mean 7. I'm sorry, 7, and they're playing at home.
I talked to people in Columbia. They are juiced for this game over there. I wish it was a night game. Because Willie B can get to rocking.
And I agree with was it you had on Doug Bell yesterday, right?
Yeah.
I agree with Doug. Colorado State, watch them beat Colorado.
Could happen. I wouldn't mind seeing it. Thank you, Philip.
Thank y'all.
All right, we'll get to break here. We'll get our main man, Kevin Skarbinski, and you listen to Tide 100.9. It's the home of Alabama sports.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. It is Tuesday, quiet for the most part. We're still hanging on in there with free flow. And so let's look inside the construction zones because you definitely have those. And whoops, I did find a disabled vehicle. 2059 eastbound after Western Bypass. But this, folks, this is on the shoulder, so it's not even bothering you one bit in those.
As low as 3.99. And yes, specials on the all-new Frontier V6. $3,000 instant savings and rates as low as 2.99. See Kylan or BJ today at Townsend Nissan.
You're listening to Inside the Locker Room with Wimp and Barry, only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Yellowwood pressure treated pipe from Great Southern. If it doesn't have the yellow tag on it, you don't want to go to yellowwood.com to find the dealer closest to you. Already writes for the Birmingham Lead. Joins us every Tuesday. We always love having Kevin on. Kevin Skrabinski. Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
Hey, Kevin.
I'm good, fellas. Good morning.
Kevin, I'm disturbed. Hugh Freeze.
Tell us something we didn't already know.
Hugh Freeze is making me mad, Kevin. I've never seen a guy. Every head coach I've ever been around in any sport that was any good always took responsibility for things that didn't go right. He put it at his own feet, and he said he'll get it corrected. When he said yesterday, Hugh Freeze says there was one play he thought was a bad call by the coaching staff, which he calls the plays in the Cal game. He says he thought the rest of the plays were there to be had, citing a lack of execution. Does that bother you?
It doesn't bother me personally. It bothers me about his ability to be a successful head coach in the SEC in the year 2024 and beyond.
Yeah.
I've had doubts about him from the moment that he appeared on their radar in the search to replace Brian Harsin. I had doubts about him when they hired him. I had doubts about him last year. I have doubts about him now. I do not see him as the guy to get Auburn out of this morass that they've been wallowing in for some time now, really about a decade, and to get them out of that and then to push them back towards the upper echelon of the SEC. And I think Saturday was just another example. They've lost 4 straight games to FBS opponents. Their only win in the last 5 games was against Alabama A&M last week, which is not a football bowl subdivision team, and just have looked so bad on offense, which is, this is a thing that started to become clear with Gus Malzahn after a few years. If you're not good, if you're no longer good at the thing you're supposed to be good at, what good are you?
Yeah. I don't know.
He's supposed to be an offensive guy, right?
Yeah.
He clearly has made a mistake at quarterback, clear to most everybody else. He is not ready to at least to admit publicly that he's made a mistake in backing Peyton Thorne, which is mind-boggling to watch Peyton. It's frustrating to watch him play because this is a guy, he's not a fifth-year senior. He's a sixth-year senior. He was at Michigan State for 4 years. 4 years. Redshirted the first year, was a backup the second year, started for 2 years, started last year at Auburn, and is starting so far this year at Auburn in his 6th year on a major college football roster, and still making freshman mistakes, still appears to flinch in the face of a pass rush, still misses open receivers on what should be routine throws for a major college quarterback, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's not just him. There are other, but it really starts with Hugh Freeze, because he's the guy that sang Peyton Thorne's praises for the entire offseason. And despite what we saw last year, and we were told that, he didn't have the weapons last year, but now they've got an improved offensive line, and now they've got this stellar receiver room. that stellar receiver room was virtually invisible on Saturday. Part of that was on the receivers, but a bigger part of that was on Peyton Thorne, and the biggest part of it is on Hugh Freeze.
Yeah.
Well, there are times that you can be doubtful about coaches and be wrong. I'll leave it at that because I think that's
true.
I mean, I do think if he could sign, he's a great recruiter, which that's going to help. But I don't know, if a leader of a program, I just think you take responsibility. Now, what you say behind closed doors and to your players and to your staff is one thing, but what you say to the media, to me, you should take responsibility. I mean, you're getting the big check, and it lies at your feet. And I just don't see him. I don't see him do that, and it for whatever reason it really bothers me.
Well, he clearly
you didn't catch what I said, Barry.
Are you okay, Wimp? Okay, that was a vague accusation, is what you said. Are you suggesting that you phrase? Are you suggesting in that phrase that Hugh Freeze is the man who's going to get Auburn where it wants to be?
I'm suggesting that when I got the job, nobody thought I should have it.
I think.
I wasn't in the business at the time, so you can't count me in that number.
I think he could because he can recruit, and so. But if you're John Cohen, do you not? If you see him doing this, rolling everybody else on the bus, is that something you address with him, or are you just, hey, he's the guy we hired, I'm gonna let him run his program the way he wants to, or do you address it, Kevin?
Well, I don't think Hugh Freeze has ever been at a level where he was beyond questioning or a discussion with the AD. Ever. I mean, the man never won a division in his years in the SEC. And they were an independent at Liberty, I think, every year he was there. So, never won a league championship there. So, that's why I go back to when Auburn hired him, which was somewhat shocking. Clearly, their power broker wanted Lane Kiffin.
Well, both of y'all were wrong because you have to realize that he was a former ladies basketball coach.
Well,
did he roll the girls under the bus too?
I hope he did roll them under there.
Well, I'm not even going to go there. Listen, but tell me. Tell me this. If Auburn had hired Lane Kiffin, if Lane Kiffin had followed through on his serious interest in the Auburn job and not only said yes or gave indications that he was going to take the job and actually had taken it, do you really believe that in his second game of his second year they would have had a quarterback play so poorly and throw 4 interceptions, or that the quarterback would have been Peyton Thorne? Think back to Peyton. I think it was Kiffin's first year at Ole Miss, the COVID year. Didn't they hang like 48 on Alabama? Wasn't it 63-48, something like that?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
And that was one of the, and remember, people have called that one of the greatest Alabama teams ever. Kiffin's first team, less than half a season of experience, I think I'm right about 2020, hung 48 on Alabama.
Yeah. So,
as an offensive coach, Hugh Freeze has never been what Lane Kiffin is. So, again, that's water under the bridge. But Freeze is supposed to be an offensive, I'm not going to say guru. I don't think he's ever been called that. But he's supposed to be an innovator. He's supposed to be a guy who knows offense. And he's also supposed to be the guy who, after waffling for the entire season last year about calling plays and feeling bad that he didn't take over the offense, he's supposed to be in charge. I don't believe I heard him say that he was even, did he even acknowledge that he was calling the plays, or is he trying to throw Derek Nix under the bus, his offensive coordinator? I don't know. But, it's just, since he got to Auburn, he has not inspired confidence in himself as a leader of a major college football program. And Barry, I'll take one issue with what you said about him being a great recruiter. I know that's what people say. I know the class they just brought in. I know what they're building for next year. But he is apparently, through necessity or desire, focusing on high school recruiting to a great degree and not using the transfer portal or being unable to use the transfer portal. I don't think you can do it exclusively that way. Not at a place like Auburn. Maybe a place like Alabama could. Maybe a place like Georgia could. But even they are smart enough to supplement through the portal. And he has not been able to do that effectively so far.
Kevin, that's good stuff. Changing the subject. Number one, is Wisconsin laying in the weeds for Alabama? And along with that statement, do maybe the coordinators say too much about the technical stuff that's going on and where they fell down with their team in press conferences?
Well, let's see. I'm still a little tongue-tied, Wimp. I think I heard you almost pay me a compliment there when you said that was good stuff. I'm not used to that, so I'm a little thrown off there. I'm joking, of course, but not really. Yes, Wisconsin is laying in the weeds. You know, they're not a great team. They haven't been for a while. But it's an 11 o'clock game, which usually is good for the visitor because the home crowd's not juiced up. You know, you'd much rather have a night game if you have a big, major, non-conference intersectional matchup like this. When they do their jump around thing at the end of the third quarter, it's not quite as effective at 1 o'clock in the afternoon as it is at 9 o'clock at night. But look, they're a major college football team. They play in the Big Ten. They have good football players, not great football players typically, but occasionally they do. They've been really good at turning out fantastic running backs. I haven't really looked at their roster yet. I haven't really started studying that game, but it's a dangerous game, especially if Alabama plays the way it played Saturday, especially if it continues to commit tons of penalties as it has through the first 2 weeks. Those are bad. Those are bad signs. Those are things that can get you beat on the road against a decent opponent. And as far as the assistant coaches, it's just so it does seem like they're giving away the store almost. And I think part of it is we're not used to hearing from Alabama assistant coaches. Yeah. We're not used to hearing from the coordinators. We're not used to hearing anything from them. Yeah. So anything we get from them sounds like a tremendous amount of information. And, comparatively speaking, it is. I don't know if they're giving away anything that is an advantage to an upcoming opponent. That's only something that Kalen DeBoer can decide. And if it is something, then that's something obviously you would think he would rein them in a little bit. It is refreshing, I will say, just as a football observer, to be able to hear from assistant coaches, to be able to get their thoughts. Back in the day, way back in the day, you could talk to assistant coaches just about any time you wanted. You didn't have to make appointments. I can remember this is again how this is how much major college sports has changed. And it doesn't. Maybe it seems like ancient history to a lot of the listeners. It doesn't to me. It seems like only yesterday I was a beat writer in my first year covering Auburn for the Birmingham News, and Bo Jackson was a senior going on to win the Heisman Trophy. But if I wanted to talk to Wayne Hall, who was the Auburn defensive coordinator, I would just walk into Beard Eve Memorial Coliseum, where the football coaches' offices were at the time. Auburn did not yet have a football building. I would walk down the hall. I didn't have to stop. I didn't have to, tell the secretary who I was or the receptionist. I just walked down the hall. And if Wayne Hall was in his office, he'd either say, "Come on and have a seat," or he'd say, "Let's talk later. I'm in the middle of something," or he might be in a meeting or whatever. So same with any of their assistant coaches. And it was so refreshing. I mean, you gained so much information. I learned so much football talking to Jack Crow, for example, who was the Auburn offensive coordinator. Just having conversations, and they weren't always about getting insight into the team. Sometimes they were. A lot of those conversations were off the record. But you learned so much about the team. And you were better informed, and it helped. It just made you a better reporter and writer.
That's correct.
And And you know that, Wimp. I mean, and Barry, you know it too.
They would stop by my office, and I'd say, "Crap, you ain't here to see me. You're here to talk to the football guys." They start laughing.
So they wouldn't let him in. They
They come in and sit down with me and talk. I'd say, "You ain't fooling me any. You trying to find Al Moore, offensive coordinator." But and they were great with it.
You never said that to me. You never said that to me when I visited with you in your office. You never said you're here for the football guys.
Yeah, you didn't stop.
Kevin, Major League Baseball, they grade the umpires and they let you know on strikes and ball calls how many they got right, how many they missed. They have a report that comes out after every game. Gambling is big in college football. Does the SEC need to give a report on the officials? There were some phantom holding calls that went on in that game that affected that line on Saturday. I'm not saying the officials were gambling, but should the SEC put out a report on the officials' calls that they got right, the percentage they got right, the percentages they got wrong? Because I look at a couple of those calls on Formby, like the one guy just fell to the ground. He just fell, and they called holding on the guy. I don't know what you're looking at when you call.
It was a weak crew.
Should it be transparent on the officials that hold them more accountable? I'm not saying you have to put them in front of the press after the game, but grade the crew on the particular game and maybe hold them accountable. Is that Dad saying no? What do you say?
I say no.
Well, I've never understood why officials are so protected and off limits. You know, I've seen football players, basketball players, 19, 20-year-olds make a major mistake. The best example, Ben Obomanu, who was an outstanding young man, wide receiver at Auburn. I believe he went to Alabama Law School after his undergraduate days, after his professional football days. Just a first-class individual. Dropped what would have been a winning touchdown pass against Ole Miss in 2003. That was the year Auburn was picked to be number one in the country or something like that before the season. They lost their first two games, and they tried to fire Tommy Tuberville. Well, they did fire him. They just didn't tell him, and they just blew up with Jetgate. After that Ole Miss game, this was late in the year, and it had been a rough year for Auburn. The last thing you expected to see was Ben Obomanu in the post-game media room. But he came to the post-game media room. He stood up. He answered every question. Didn't flinch. He didn't pass the buck. He didn't make excuses. He took responsibility, all the things that the current Auburn head football coach could learn from. And just was a stellar example of what a young student athlete should be. And yet we protect officials. We don't let them speak to the press. And I agree. I don't think every official should be available to the press after every game. However, if there is a game-changing call, if there is a very controversial call, the crew chief should be available to a pool reporter. And that is the case I don't know if people know this, that is the case at NCAA tournaments, for example, in basketball. I've been the pool reporter before at SEC tournaments. And you get to talk to them, you get to ask a couple questions, and you type up what they said and you distribute it to everybody because you're the pool reporter. Last year at the SEC baseball tournament, there was a very controversial call in the LSU South Carolina semifinal. And the head of officials, I got the head of officials, I was blogging the tournament for the SEC. He came to the post-game interview room, answered our questions, and then I sat with him one-on-one and got a detailed explanation of why the call was made the way it was. We need more of that. We need more transparency with officiating in football, and I don't see what's wrong with grading a crew. What about grading crews week to week?
Well, I think they probably do, but it's
they do. Yeah. Well, yeah. Yes. I'm glad you pointed that out. Let me be clear about that. Every official is graded in every game, and that is shared with the officials. And supposedly, I say supposedly a little bit tongue in cheek, the conferences that employ these guys hold them accountable. I don't know how they hold them accountable because we never hear about it. And even if there is any discipline action, it's very rare that we hear about it. And yet, there are calls. We all see it in that Auburn Cal game. Peyton Thorne actually threw 5 interceptions.
He did.
One of them in the end zone was waved off. It was a terrible defensive pass interference call.
Yeah,
and it was a critical call because the next play, or 2 plays later, Auburn scores to make it a 1-score game, 21-14, late in the game, and Auburn still had plenty of time to come back and tie it and win it. And then, of course, Peyton Thorne threw 2 more interceptions on the next 2 possessions. But that was but again, I know there are judgment calls. I understand that, but I just think there's not near enough transparency about officiating performance.
Let me tell you 2 guys about something. When they first started in the SEC basketball, you were allowed to scratch an official. You call the commissioner, not the commissioner. You call the head of the officials, and you scratched him because you didn't want. And that scratch was in effect for a long time. And all of a sudden, the scratch stopped. Be no more scratching of officials. But that has occurred. Now, I don't know whether it's ever occurred in football, and I'm sure it has. But it occurred because I was assistant coach, and we did some scratching. And so that was huge then. I thought we was going to have so-and-so at the Ole Miss game. No, he got scratched. So, it's pretty interesting there.
Yeah, I've heard of that in basketball. I don't think I've ever heard of that happening in football. It may happen. And, of course, there are certain, conflict of interest rules that are supposed to prevent certain individuals with certain backgrounds from doing certain games. But, yeah, I wish we had recordings of some of your calls with John Guthrie back in the day.
Yeah, that's right. We got
all right. Lastly, Kevin, the video of Tyreek Hill came out. Nobody's talking about that he was driving 100 before they pulled him over. Your thoughts on what happened there? A lot of people saying the police were wrong there. Well, he had 10 in the windows. They asked him to roll down the window. Just your thoughts about that whole situation.
Well, first of all, and I think this is a plague in this country, is everybody wants to take a side. Like my side's right and your side's wrong.
Yeah.
And without accepting the more common situation in which both sides could be wrong. Both sides, look, it takes 2 to tango. Old cliche, but it's true. And Tyreek Hill could have, first of all, yes, never should have been driving that fast in that area. I mean, he's a couple miles from the stadium on game day. No excuse for that. And he could have adopted a better attitude. It's like I always tell my sons, and no, we are not African American, so we have never felt that feeling that we hear from a lot of African Americans that they feel like they're not treated fairly by law enforcement officers on too many occasions. But I've always told my sons, you get pulled over, you say, yes, sir, no, sir. You do not, no matter if you think you're in the right and the officer's in the wrong, you treat the officer with respect. Do not give him an opportunity to drag you out of the car and throw you on the ground and put you in handcuffs and take you to jail. Treat them with respect. Even again, they're not always right. And I have not always followed, let me just say, I've not always followed that myself. I've been pulled over too many times in my life for driving too fast, although it's been a thing of the past now as I've gotten more seasoned. But there have been times when I was snarky, and I thought the officer was completely wrong, and I expressed that. Now, I never had a situation like Tyreek Hill. Thank goodness. It never escalated to that. But Tyreek Hill, first of all, shouldn't have done what he did and should have been more cooperative, should have been more, I don't want to say deferential, but look, you got pulled over for a reason. So the sooner you comply, the sooner you do what they're asking you to do, even if it's legally, and I see this great debate. Everybody's a lawyer on Twitter, right? Well, you don't have to put your window down. You don't have to keep your window down. You just have to show them your license and registration or your license and insurance card, whatever it might be in each state. Well, look, I don't care. There's the law and then there's reality. And if the officer asks you to put your window down, especially if they're tinted, you put your window down, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what's so hard about that?
Yeah.
Now, having said that, so Tyreek Hill was in the wrong in a number of ways, but the officers overreacted as well. They knew who he was, first of all. They knew he was a player for the Dolphins because you can hear on the body cam footage, hey, that's Tyreek Hill. So you know he's going to the stadium a couple of miles away. Doesn't excuse what he did. He deserved to be pulled over. He deserved to be stopped. But I think the officer, one in particular, escalated the situation.
Yeah.
And could have de-escalated. Your job as an officer there should be to de-escalate the situation. And it became a situation because of the actions of both sides. That's my take.
Yeah, I think the best thing you said there is we always somebody has to be right, or wrong. Well,
yes.
They both could have.
How about they're both wrong?
Yeah, they're both wrong.
Yeah.
No doubt. All right, tell everybody where they can find you, Kevin.
Yeah, follow me on Twitter/X for more pearls of wisdom like this and common sense, hopefully. That's a good place to follow me, especially on Football Saturdays. And you can read me, of course, twice a week in the Birmingham Lead, BirminghamLeadLED.com. You can subscribe to that. It's a terrific publication. And you can now watch me on 6:30 on Saturdays on CBS 42 in Birmingham, except this Saturday because CBS has a Big Ten doubleheader that 42 is required to carry. But we had our debut show this past Saturday, Scott Griffin and me. It's a very fast-paced 30 minutes. It goes by in a blur. We will be back on next Saturday, a week from Saturday, and we will be on every Saturday throughout the regular season. I hope people will check it out.
Yeah, I would just suggest if the Alabama football game's at 6, y'all try to move that to a different time that day.
Well, that's it. We're kind of locked in based on the CBS schedule and their football games and such. And tell your boy Rick Neuheisel to talk less because they ran into our time last week, and for no good reason, they had a full post-game show themselves, and they ran 5 minutes into our time.
There you go.
So tell Rick, cut it off, man. We got some guys in Birmingham. We've got a few things to say here.
There we go. Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, guys. Have a great week.
All right. We want to thank Yellowwood, pressure treated pine from Great Southern. They brought you this 7 o'clock hour. We're open the phone line 205-342-9904. You listen to Tide 100.9 to see home of Alabama sports.
Go inside the Alabama Crimson Tide with the Gary Harris Show.
Hey, everybody. At 9 a.m. on the Gary Harris Show, the Rocket Man, Drew DeArmond, will join me. Also, Kayla Anderson with the Titans report. They had a heartbreaking loss against the Bears. Your phone calls. And, of course, we'll recap Alabama football press conference from Monday. All that and more, 9 a.m. on the Gary Harris Show.
Catch the Gary Harris Show Monday through Friday, 9 to 11 a.m. on Tide 100.9 and Tide100.9.com.
WTBC Tuscaloosa and W265CG Tuscaloosa, a Town Square media station. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
From the Fox Sports Studios in Los Angeles, here's Eddie Garcia.
Week 1 of the NFL regular season came to a close with Monday Night Football in Santa Clara, where the 49ers beat the Jets 32-19. San Francisco star running back Christian McCaffrey was inactive for the game with ankle and Achilles issues. In stepped Jordan Mason, who had 28 carries for 147 yards and a touchdown in the win, and Jake Moody added 6 field goals for San Francisco. Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers in his regular season return from an Achilles injury that cost him almost all of last season, finished 13 of 21 passing for 167 yards with 1 touchdown and 1 interception in the loss. News from the NFL, Buffalo Bills quarterback Josh Allen will start Thursday night's game against Miami despite suffering an injury to his non-throwing hand in a win over the Cardinals on Sunday. Green Bay Packers quarterback Jordan Love not placed on injured reserve, and the team hasn't officially ruled him out for week 2 with a knee injury, but is expected Malik Willis will start against the Colts on Sunday. LA Rams placed wide receiver Puka Nacua on injured reserve.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. We're cranking up the volume a bit in the area, but not by too much. So here we go on 43 southbound onto McFarland Boulevard. Of course, that is bound to get heavy. That's a busy intersection and pretty eventful for mornings. Also moving on Lurleen Wallace or 69 on the southbound lane.
For talented candidates to find it, which makes it easier for you to hire them. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Inside the Locker Room with former Crimson Tide basketball coach Wimp Sanderson and his son, former SEC and ACC assistant basketball coach Barry Sanderson. It's time to take you inside the locker room on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome back to the second hour of Inside the Locker Room. We want to thank Andrew Kniffer. Andrew's my Allstate insurance agent. Let him become yours. He's out at 4705 McFarland Boulevard, Suite 3 over in Northport. I just had to make some changes to my insurance. So literally I just called or text Andrew actually, and within a couple of days I had all my new cards, everything right there in the mail. So he takes great care of me. Let him do the same for you. Looking for auto, home, condo, renter, you got motorcycle you need to insure, ATV, life, business, whatever it is, Andrew and his staff will take great care of you. Give them a call today, 205-722-9201. Why do you say that the officials' grade should not be public? You know, they made some bad calls on some of these linemen here for Alabama. That might get some of these people off of them a little bit if they came back and said, well, those calls were actually missed. I know the coaches look at it and they talk to the players and they probably talk to the officials, the directive officials. They send clips in, I know, on stuff that was questionable. Why shouldn't that be public, in your opinion? Is he gone? He had something come up. He may have had to step out there. I'll ask you that, Chase, and you guys can dial us up 205-342-9904. Chase, do you think it should be public? Hey, these were the calls that were made. They got this percentage right, this percentage wrong. They missed here, there. Should their grades be public, especially in this gambling world?
Man, it should definitely be public. I think if they're able to make that call on national television and do it with confidence, they should be corrected publicly, because a lot of people try to wonder, well, why was this call made? Why was this call made? And they don't usually get an explanation behind it. So to get a grade for how they do it, I think it's important, especially like you said with gambling.
Well, I also think when they go to make the call, they need to make sure they get the number right. Because when they say the foul was on whatever, number 58 or whatever. So when they show the replay, you're specifically focusing in on that particular guy. Sometimes they get the number wrong there. You know, there's been a lot of talk about the criticism that some of the players have taken, and I've heard people say, well, you know, this is big boy football. You're at the University of Alabama. You got to be able to handle the criticism. Yes, it is big time football. Hey, they're getting NIL money. These guys are going to have to toughen up a little bit. But it's the personal attacks that these kids get is what I don't like. Yeah, they are making NIL money, but that doesn't give you the right to be personal about these kids that are out there. First of all, you couldn't do any better. I promise you that. The guy that's criticizing, and it'd be like Chase, if you were a lawyer, all right, and you didn't do a good job for me, and I went to social media and said, you know what, this guy is horrible. If you're ever looking for a personal injury attorney, this guy was lazy. He didn't do what he was supposed to do. And it may be true. It may be not, and they may not be true. Or any type of business. I guarantee you those same people that are criticizing these players and getting very personal, if you went out on social media and crushed their business about the job that they did at your house, but maybe they had a bad experience, maybe they did a bad job, and you crushed them, they would coil up so fast and not like that. And that's just, that's the way I look at it, you know. So if you probably wouldn't want that being said about you as well, if somebody called you out, because you may say, you know what, yeah, I did mess something up, but this was the reason, or it was misinterpreted. But if they blasted you, then I don't think you would like it that way either. But are you going to get some criticism? We've given Hugh Freeze some today, but I think when you are the leader of a program and then you don't take responsibility, I'm not trying to get personal with Hugh Freeze. I just don't like that approach. I think the head coach, everybody saw what he said. I think he has to take responsibility. He doesn't obviously see it that way. All right, let's get to the Andrew Kniffer hotline and get Tom in. Good morning, Tom.
Hey, Barry, what's going on? What's wrong with Coach?
None. He just had to take a phone call.
Oh, okay. I got you.
He said call him back, Chase, too. Go ahead.
Concerning the officials and publicly reprimand or making their grades known, I feel like that we all know. We're all up here criticizing the calls that they made against in the game, not just against Alabama, but Kevin pointed out an egregious no call on pass interference in the Auburn game, and or one that they called that wasn't. I can't remember which, but it is public. We all are seeing the incompetence that is in these referee calls, and 3 or 4 years ago, we said, it's because they're making and missing these calls because they're under pressure because of the video review. You remember that?
Yeah.
That argument?
Yeah.
And which it should have improved officiating, and it didn't do it. And but I tell you what, Coach is on to something, I think, and that is the ability to scratch certain officials. And they ought to give me that job at Alabama.
They actually do that in high school as well. When we get to our, they'll let you scratch guys. Actually, during the year, you can scratch them, guys they give you so many scratches that you could, if you've had problems with guys.
I know one in basketball I'd scratch permanently, but anyway, I do think that would be sort of the checks and
the only problem with that, Tom, in college, and I may be wrong, so you don't know better than me, but don't these guys, their teams, so whoever was calling the Alabama South Florida game, that whole unit, won't they be somewhere else calling? So if they scratch when they would be pulling one guy out of that team, so then how do they add somebody? If that's correct, don't these guys travel in teams and call?
I don't know. That would be part of it. That definitely would be part of it, and it'd have to be considered, because then you create a large problem. And my understanding is it's not that many people are wanting to be officials right now. I don't think it's easy to fill those positions. Now, I may be wrong about that. But
it is really is in high school. They're really having to do, and it's filtering down to like where the middle schools can't even play on the same night as the high schools. There are not enough officials to call the games because of the criticism these guys are getting, and they're not very good to begin with. Some of them, but they're trying.
Tom, I just got back on the air.
Right,
I had a problem, but the officials trying to get in the SEC are wanting to get in bad because of the money. They are interested in they are lined up in him watching officials work junior college games and Division III games and all that kind of stuff to see if he thinks they're any good or not. They've got a crews that watch them and then try to move them up as they go along. But the money part is what these officials want. Now, in Barry's case, is right. They're whatever he says is correct, but in the SEC, they a lot of them would like to do it because of the money.
Right. Well, let me ask you this. I want to hear y'all address this. Some arguments have been that we need to make it a full-time job, but to me, that would be dangerous because I think if you're full-time, forming alliances would be more. You're more apt to form alliances if you're an employee of the conference. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I just don't see. I mean, they're only playing from September to January. That's a full-time job. So what are you going to do the rest of the year? I don't agree with it being a full-time. They're paying them. They're paying them like a full-time job. They're paying these SEC basketball guys. They're calling 4 and 5 games a week, and they're making big bank calling games, big money.
Yeah, you know what? I see them in other places besides the SEC too.
Yeah, they're individual contractors. They're going everywhere. So I don't know. I just wanted to be more transparent. If the players,
well, I want it to be right. I mean, I was so frustrated because you had a young player over at right tackle, Wilkin Formby. And I hope I said his name right.
You
and
did.
They had him over at right tackle, and they're calling these phantom calls on him. What does that do to his development? I mean, that's what I was thinking about. And I'm probably too biased and all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't seem fair. And if I was the head of officials, I'd say, if there's any doubt, don't pull the flag.
Yeah, I just So sometimes when you look at it, you're thinking the guy threw the flag. There was nothing there.
Right.
It makes me wonder, Tom.
Me too.
So thank you, sir.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, back up to the Andrew Conifer hotline. Get Philip in. Hey, Philip.
Hey, Barry, I apologize about taking up more of your time. I just wanted to give you a call. Guess who has an account on X?
Who?
SEC officiating.
Is that real, though?
Well, I guess.
I mean, like, who started it? Is it really run by the SEC? I guess will be my. I'll check it out, but
yeah, it's just called SEC officiating. And for instance, it was up. 2 days ago they had a post where they talked about their week 2 officiating assignments. 3 days ago they had something about some college football rules. Steve Shaw was going over it on
they
video.
had their assignments. Did they put the guys' names on there?
Let me look at it. Hold on.
They may. I guess you see. I mean, most of these people know their names, but you'll start. Yeah, you're going to start seeing them put officials' names and phone numbers on social media. I mean, this guy's.
Some of the I'd have to get in there and look real hard, but there's some good questions from fans.
Yeah, that may be real.
One guy says, "I'm sure SEC officiating will be awful again this year. Same old, same old." One guy says, "Big 12 officials. When are we playing a Big 12 team?" That's definitely not suspicious at all. I mean, their comments are hilarious that some of the fans make, but they hardly ever give a reply to anything.
Yeah. There's so many different X accounts out there, and I don't know what that one is. This
looks legit.
Yeah. So, how many followers? How many followers does it have?
41,000. Over 41,000 looks like.
Yeah. So probably is. All right. Mm-hmm. We'll see. I'll check it out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, we'll take this break here. We still got the clips from Coach Sheridan that we'll listen to. We also take your phone calls, 205-342-9904. You listen to Tide 100.9, 1230 a.m. WTBC. It's the home of Alabama sports.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. Well, McFarland Boulevard looks a little heavier than it did moments ago, and that's on both the east and westbound lanes between Watermelon and 43. Now, McFarland, or make that Lurleen Wallace on the north and southbound lanes, making that hookup to McFarland. That's also, I'm seeing a lot more
solutions, project and warehouse management, arc flash studies, and more. Visit CED in Tuscaloosa, Coleman, and Decatur, and All Phase Electric Supply in Albertville and Huntsville.
Crimson Tide Today is presented on Tide 100.9, WTBC 1230 by BMW of Tuscaloosa. Online at bmwoftuscaloosa.com.
From the University of Alabama, this is Crimson Tide Today. It's a daily update on Bama sports, and it's brought to you by Everwood, the official treated lumber of Alabama athletics. Everwood, wood treated right. Hello again, everybody. I'm Roger Hoover. Here are more post-game thoughts from head coach Kalen DeBoer following Alabama's 42-16 win over South Florida.
Defense did a nice job forcing some field goals.
And just as we went through the game there in the fourth quarter, I think those were key, so us scoring touchdowns and finishing drives other than the fumble, which was certainly unfortunate. Again, a lot of things we need to clean up. Guys got to do a better job when they make a big play. You got to tuck it away. All the things we work on, all the things we discuss, going to be, a lot to learn from. And so excited about the challenge, the opportunity, because that's what this is. And I think you need games like this, and this isn't a wake up call or nothing like that. It's nothing like that. It's just just keep raising the standard. I think this game last year was an important one, that propelled them last year, and it'll probably be the same thing this year. That's my hope.
I'll have more in a moment.
Producing championship quality lumber is not an easy process, but at Everwood Preserving, it's our only process. Wood treated right. Everwood offers top-notch pressure-treated wood for decks, outdoor structures, commercial jobs, and more that you can build your reputation on. When it comes to quality, we're on the winning team. Visit your local Everwood dealer today and discover the difference for yourself. Everwood Preserving Incorporated, the official lumber of the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Join us this afternoon for Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, streaming live at 2 p.m. Central on all CTSN social media platforms. Crimson Tide Today is brought to you by Everwood. Crimson Tide Today is a production of the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Two-time state champion and two-time NIT champion, Barry Sanderson breaks down the latest in sports on Inside the Locker Room on Tide 100.9.
Welcome back to Inside the Locker Room. So every Monday they do let the coordinator speak. Kind of with that. I don't know. I guess with Coach Saban, I got used to just hearing the one voice, and I kind of enjoyed just hearing from Coach. But now they're letting everybody, well, not everybody, but the coordinators speak. So Coach Nick Sheridan did meet with the media. So we'll hear what he had to say. Let's go ahead and just play his opening statement yesterday over in the Malmore building.
Compete against a tremendous opponent. I think Coach Fickell, Coach Tressel, the history, speaks for itself on the quality of defense that they've always had. The tremendous challenge that it'll be for us in a very hostile environment and a super proud program that has great tradition, great history, and great expectations. So it'll be a great challenge for our group, and looking forward to the opportunity. Fire away.
All right, let's go right to the next clip. Dad and I started the show off talking about the atmosphere that Wisconsin brings. I've never seen anything like it when I was around their basketball program when they traveled to the Final Four. I did look up the tickets though. I was a little bit shocked. Like, you can get tickets to this game. I thought it would be very difficult. And they're a little pricey, but they're not anything crazy like this Alabama-Georgia game is going to be. But here's what Coach Sheridan had to say on the atmosphere at Wisconsin.
You went to Wisconsin one time, I think at the end of the COVID year. Can you just speak to the what you just mentioned, the hostile atmosphere, the crowd noise, et cetera?
Well, there's no fans at the game. For that game.
That's right.
Yeah, I've been there a few times as a player too when I was a player, and so I just think it's a program that loves football. The fans are very passionate, and it's a tremendous environment to play and compete in. And it's a credit to their fan base and the pride that they have in that state for that program. So it'll be a challenge for sure, and one we're excited for.
Really not much there, right, Dad? But it will be a tough atmosphere, right?
Yeah, it will be. It'll be home field advantage. There's no doubt about that. Now, off the field, this crowd will turn them on and keep them turned on. I think getting off to a great start is important for you. If you can, and I think the biggest thing is the ones that we talked about over and over and over is to be sure that you turn the football over and do everything you possibly can to avoid the officials. Now, we talked about officials a lot, and one of the things that goes about with the athletic directors is that on games at other people's places, where would the officials be from? People that called into this show I know a lot about that kind of stuff. will be SEC officials or there will be Big Ten officials. There will not be a mixture. There are times that when you go to the visiting places, teams in basketball and sometimes in football, SEC officials call at Madison, Wisconsin.
Do they do neutral? Sometimes maybe have a Big 12 crew calling it?
Not until they get to bowl games.
Yeah.
They don't do any. There's no neutral stuff, generally speaking, unless there's a big stink about both coaches. When you get to bowl games, yes, there are neutral officials, and they get bowl games on their deserving ratings during the season. If they have a high rating during the season, then they have an opportunity to get a certain bowl game. Now, if Wisconsin returns the game to Alabama, I hadn't looked at the future schedule.
Yeah, they will.
If they do that, then the Big Ten officials will probably come down here and call the game. That's the way they've done it some in basketball, and I don't know whether you'll see whether you'll recognize the head official if you keep up with this kind of stuff when you see them calling their first stuff when the game starts. So the officiating's big. The more as little as they can make officiating public, as far as who's calling games, who's doing this, who said this, who said that. They do everything possible from the conference office and everywhere else. The person that's in charge of it, and we had him on our show. He's darn good to be sure that this thing stays away from everybody. Can you do that? No.
One of the things, like Coach Odom, I didn't ever think I won't say fault. He didn't work the officials a lot. But there's a lot of times that you do want to send in clips. And so, you call the director of officials and say, I'm going to send you these 10 clips. I want you to look at them and give me your thoughts. And then you hope that in turn he goes to that official and says, man, what were you thinking here? Why'd you make this call? And then these officials get reputations. Hey, this guy is very picky on holding. This guy, if you hit him a little bit late, he's going to call it. And then players also get reputations with the officials, correct? And so then they're looking out for certain things, because the other coaching staff's made them aware, hey, this kid holds all the time. You guys have got to call it. If you don't call that, we got no chance. So you put little bugs in their ears.
One of the things that you do too, Barry, you have the officiating crews, and the crew member of that group will be darn sure that they understand. Hey, if we do a good job here, I mean, if this is a well officiated game, we have a chance to move on to a bowl game or move on. So they're graded as a crew. Then probably I'm not sure the head of the officials may talk to the head of the officials group as to how he feels about his group. There will be officials. There'll be minority officials. There'll be white officials. There won't be all minorities. Won't be all white. There'll be a mixture of minority people and white people in calling the games. And that's being honest about it. It's not being anything ugly, but that's the way this operates. So you try to move on by the kind of job that you do, and your head official also at the halftime with the group that he has. Can warn and help say something, because sometimes these guys that come in there, as you kind of are young. Some of them are real old. Some of them are guys who've been there a long time and they know the score. Some of them are brand new, and you have to help them a little bit at the halftime with your head official.
Yeah, I would think that when Nick Saban was standing on the sideline, the officials were a little bit intimidated. They wanted to make sure that if they got a call, they got it right with him, because they didn't want him criticizing them. Maybe Kalen DeBoer's new in the league. Maybe he's not getting quite as good a whistle.
You're right. One of the things that happens to you, if you'll watch it, when Coach was there, if the official was close to the sideline and he talked in their ear, they listened. They listened. They didn't walk away from him talking in their ear. So when he caught them on the sidelines, where he could say something to him, he did so, and they listened. Generally speaking, you're right. The kind of prestige the guy has, the winning he's done, whatever. And there are times that you're more friendly with an official than there are other times. You know the guy, he's called your games for years, and you're all are friends. Not, you don't got going out to parties together, but you are friendly with each other. So, I've always wondered, especially in basketball, is that when you go to a game, are the officials time that say, well, I've seen this team play 100 times, and I'm going to call this game fair, but I sure like this coach and this team. So I don't know.
All right, let's play this number 3 clip about Jalen Milroe. What can Jalen Milroe approve in his pocket presence? A lot of people complain he holds on to the ball too long. Just get it out of your hands, and if you got to throw it away, just throw it away. Don't take the sack. Here's what Coach Sheridan had to say about that.
Well, I think he did some nice things the other night as far as avoiding some rush and creating some plays. And I think there's other times where, we're looking for him to try to get the ball out of his hands, when there's opportunities that present themselves that way. So, I don't think any two plays are the same. I think every situation, you're just continuing to try to teach and point out, opportunities to just stay away from some negative plays that way. And sometimes, there's not much the quarterback can do. But in the opportunities where we feel like maybe he could have made a different choice or decision, we just talk through that. Obviously these are split-second decisions, and he made a lot of great plays for us. And there's a couple where, hey, maybe if you got the ball out here, he threw the ball here, or whatever it may be. So that happens every game. I think he's been receptive to that and, acknowledges and recognizes each and every game opportunities for improvement, and I thought there was a lot of great moments for him, in that regard in the game as well.
In Womack's call, and as I said this once, so we got new listeners all the time. In Womack's case, he wanted to just play the call that was made on Justin, but he did not. He talked around it, but if you're smart enough to know, I guess about he as I am, as far as knowing what they say, he felt the call was wrong.
Yeah. All right, let's take the break here. Let's tell them about our great people over at Bryant Bank before we get to break.
Well, Bryant Bank with 4 locations are terrific people and do everything they possibly can to ensure that you have a comfortable situation when you come into Bryant Bank. We also have the banks in Birmingham, Columbiana, and several throughout the state. And if you're looking to get a new bank, or if you're looking to change banks, or if you're looking to have your business account or personal account in one bank and one in another, then call Bryant Bank and set up a meeting with them, and I think that you'll be well pleased. They do a really good job of being able to let you know that you can bank online around the clock, which is important. We talk about the graft that comes into with a lot of people throughout this country. The internet has a lot to do with it when they try to get your phone numbers and all kinds of things that people try to do to find out exactly what's going on with your money, and they're darn well equipped to stop that. So go by Bryant Bank and tell them you heard them inside the locker room.
You listen to Tide 100.9. It's the home of Alabama sports.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. Well, McFarland Boulevard looks a little heavier than it did moments ago, and that's on both the east and westbound lanes between Watermelon and 43. Now, McFarland, or make that Lurleen Wallace on the north and southbound lanes, making that hookup to McFarland. That's also, I'm seeing a lot more red.
You're at higher risk of landing in the hospital from RSV, and there are no prescription RSV treatments. Check eligibility and schedule your RSV vaccine at VaxAssist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The sky partly sunny today. The high for this afternoon around 89. Becoming cloudy tonight, the low 67. Tomorrow cloudy, rain moving in during the day, the high 83. Thursday breezy with widespread rain, the high at 74. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9.
Alabama fans are all over the world, and we are too. Download the Tide 100.9 app right now in the App Store and Google Play, and take the Crimson Tide everywhere you go.
Tuscaloosa Toyota. Go to TuscaloosaToyota.com. Don't pay the high rental car prices. If you want to rent a Toyota before you buy it, then you can give them a call today, 205-561-2043. They also got a great website here. I'm looking at it right here, TuscaloosaToyota.com. You look at all the new inventory, the pre-owned inventory. You can schedule a service. As I said, you can rent a Toyota there or order a part. Or swing by Skyland Boulevard, see Justin. We talk to Justin every Wednesday. Great people out there at Tuscaloosa Toyota. They do a great job for you. When you get by there today, tell them that Wimp and Barry sent you. All right, let's switch over. Guys, phone lines are open if you guys want to jump in on the show, 205-342-9904. Let's go to Coach DeBoer's opening statement yesterday with the media.
Questions up. Morning. Got through the weekend. I hope you guys had a good weekend, and I know you got a lot of information from the coordinators already. But probably one of the things I know I'll get asked is about injuries, and so just hit on a couple guys probably that will come up. Cole Adams got hurt upper extremity injury, and we'll kind of see how he goes through the week here. And rule him out, but I think probably be very limited early, and we'll see how it goes throughout the week there. But and then Pritchett played, in the game as you saw last, I think 6 plays or so, and came out good with that. Practiced towards the end of the week, Wednesday, Thursday, a little more limited on Wednesday, and as the week went on, practiced. Felt okay about him being out there. Felt good about him being out there. And he came in and did a nice job. And the big thing is that he got through healthy, and that was a key there. And then Caden Proctor, he will continue to work on his functional movement and all that kind of stuff early in the week and keep progression in a way where I feel we're going to be pretty dang close at the weekend and get him on the football field. So I feel like he's coming along real well, especially at the end of the last week, working extremely hard to get back out there. I know a lot of the things that both coordinators talked about. I think a lot of the stuff that needs to be worked on was pretty obvious. I think sometimes you look at a game and maybe statistics don't show the things that we know as a staff we need to work on. I think pretty obvious penalties and takeaway turnovers, creating takeaways and limited turnovers is a high priority. It always is. Not something that we don't take lightly. It's something that's an emphasis every single day. So we'll continue to do that. And there were some highlights I thought that you could take from the game on both sides of the ball as a team. Continue to fight, continue to play. Didn't feel like our guys ever came up short with the amount of energy and effort. I think they had a ton of energy and want to before the game at halftime. But they regrouped. Both sides were holding themselves accountable for the things that they knew they needed to clean up. We cleaned up some of those things, I think, in the second half. Other issues presented themselves. And, in the end, though, they're going to find a way. And they kept fighting. They kept playing together. They took it on themselves and individually, their unit, to go make the plays and trust the other side of the ball that they get it done as well. So I'm proud of that piece. Tomorrow, go back to work. Today's their day off from practice, and the guys came in yesterday excited, ready to go with the challenge that lies ahead with Wisconsin. And there is no other option other than just go to work tomorrow. And we're going to have a great Tuesday. Question?
All right, there was a pretty long opening statement there, but Coach, and I'm not comparing him to Coach Saban. They're completely different, and I think they're great in their own ways. But he would normally use the media to get a message across to his team or to the fan base to try to energize. Like, hey, we got to. have a great crowd here, not to rat poison, all the different things. Whether you asked it or not, he was going to get that out, which was very entertaining. These press conferences are just kind of generic, to be quite honest with you. And it's just a different style, though. Just your thoughts about what?
Well, I can't think of the guy who came in with the coach and taught him what to say. Yeah, people are laughing about this, but Helk is great.
Yeah.
Wrote the book. I've read the book now. I forgot what it said, but Elko came in, and Elko really went over things with him. Not that he wasn't good to start with, so don't hang up the phone and say he's bad. He's good to start with, but I think there's certain things. Here's the way you need to handle this. Here's my thinking on this. And there were times when things occurred that coach would ask his opinion because the situation was quite different than anything he'd come up with. He had seen before, and he would. You talk about talking to Jimmy, the agent. He talked to him and Elko a lot more than the public knows. And I
think he was always looking for ways to motivate his team for that game. So what kind of game is it? If it's Georgia, I'm really not going to have to say a lot against Georgia. If it's maybe a Missouri, or if it's a South Carolina, it's a different game. If it's a Mercer, then, he would blow his stack when they weren't playing well. He wasn't going to get them up for that game anyways, unless it was like one of the first games of the year. So he took the game and then tried to figure out what button he had. I don't see that to the media. Now, I'm sure Coach DeBoer and those guys are doing it, with the players, but they're not doing it through the media.
No, they're not. And, you have to understand, fellows, this is a Big Ten. This is a very good Big Ten team. We've got a tough non-conference. You go through that stuff with them, and as I've said before, that's what your assistant position coaches are for, is to be darn sure your little group, your little position. And when you go into the offensive staff meetings and the defensive staff meetings, you have two meetings. You have an offensive and defensive staff meeting separate, and then you have a meeting with all of them together. Prior to that. Prior to the season, you will have a big meeting of recruiting, and as you go through the season, if you have an off week, that's when you have your big recruiting meetings, just to see where you're going with things. I have a feeling this guy may be going to leave us. I'm trying to see now. We may have a guy gone here. This guy here is not playing quite as good as we thought he could play when we signed him. I don't know if he's going to stay. Those kinds of things come up during the off week.
Yeah, let's play this last clip, number 7. Obviously, the offensive line was struggling, and the question was how to keep your position group calm and think when they're struggling with penalties. I'll be curious to hear what Coach DeBoer had to say about that.
Secondary so far. Yeah, they've done a really good job of changing it up, different coverages and different game plans from week 1 to week 2. We got the 2 picks to start off the season, and I thought they were 15, I think they were 15 of 35, I think, in the game. That wasn't their strength necessarily, but we took it away from them, and I think for us in that game, last weekend, we needed to adjust to how it's being called, and I think that's what you try to say, hey, it's getting called, right? Getting called tighter. And, now we're really able to look at replays and understand, if you didn't see it in the game when it happened live or why it was called, because sometimes it's on the other side of the field from where our bench is at, you can go back and you can see the end zone wide shot and try to determine how tight is it called, and so, trying to stress that, we got to do a good job keeping it in our hands when we're inside in a lot of cases. We just kept grabbing off longer when they were pulling away from us just for that split second, holding, getting called. Unfortunately, they brought back, I don't know, this is a rough tally, but I wanted to just kind of do my own numbers. I think there's probably at least 180, 190 yards worth of offense, not counting the yards that we've lost because of the penalty assessment. And that's a game changer. The first half alone, I think it was probably at least 180. So we got to adjust and make sure we're playing the game the way it's supposed to be played.
All right.
There's three kind of listeners. The first listener is John Q. fan who knows very little, doesn't know much about anything. There's the press listening to see if they can find something they can write about that he said off key. And then the third listener is your opponent. If you say anything that I heard him say in the press conference, those are your three listeners to anybody that talks as much as the assistant coaches do at Alabama.
Yeah, well, they ain't giving the opponents nothing, to be honest with you. USA Tide, in my opinion, USA Tide 100.9 is the home of Alabama sports.
Go inside the Alabama Crimson Tide with the Gary Harris Show.
Hey, everybody. At 9 a.m. on the Gary Harris Show, the Rocket Man, Drew DeArmond, will join me. Also, Kayla Anderson with the Titans report. They had a heartbreaking loss against the Bears. Your phone calls. And, of course, we'll recap Alabama football press conference from Monday. All that and more, 9 a.m. on the Gary Harris Show.
Catch the Gary Harris Show Monday through Friday, 9 to 11 a.m. on Tide 100.9 and Tide100.9.com.
Tide 100.9 Traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. It's been all nice and tamed in the area for most of the morning, and we just keep it moving. And now on Joe Malisham Parkway, you will have that slow patch right around Black Warrior River. And as far as Lurleen Wallace and McFarland Boulevard, that intersection, that's...
Or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
Road tripping, business travel, or bringing your car in for repairs. All great reasons to rent a Toyota at Tuscaloosa Toyota. You can rent the latest Toyota models for a day, a week, or a weekend. Every Toyota rental car comes with 24 hours roadside assistance.
And qualifying new line for well-qualified customers plus tax and $35 device connection charge. Contact us before canceling entire account to continue remaining bill credits, and if you pay off device early. See details at T-Mobile.com.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The sky partly sunny today. The high for this afternoon around 89. Becoming cloudy tonight, the low 67. Tomorrow cloudy, rain moving in during the day, the high 83. Thursday breezy with widespread rain, the high at 74. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9.
Mr. SEC Tournament Wimp Sanderson gives you his excellent analysis every weekday on Inside the Locker Room, right here on Tide 100.9.
Welcome back. That'll pretty much do it for today's show, Dad. We're still working on the Blue Plate special. We didn't have anybody call today to give any suggestions. That Blue Plate's brought to you by the Chuck Norwood team at RE/MAX and Gulf Shores. Buying or selling, contact Chuck Norwood and his group down there. They do a great job. 251-948-1212. Or you can go to the website, chucknorwood.com. So hopefully Ted can hit his Blue Plate special this week. Right now, we're off to a tough start, but we'll see. All right, that's it for today's show. Stay tuned for the Gary Harris Show. He is next. You listen to Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC. It's the home of Alabama sports. Have a great day, everybody.